Hey guys, today we're doing section 2A.1. We're going to be adding and subtracting integers together mentally. This is a review for many of you I know, but I think it's an important skill to have, and everybody can practice it, and especially if this has been a bit of a struggle for you in the past, I'm going to try and give you a way to look at this, kind of a three-step process that you'll do quickly, which will hopefully allow you to become more skillful at it. You know, I think adding and subtracting integers mentally is important. I think it makes you faster. I think it gives you better math sense, which means that as you're doing your work and you get an answer to a problem, you'll have better sense of whether it seems like that the answer is correct or not. It's really just a good skill to have. You might remember from chapter 1 that adding and subtracting integers, that integers are just positive or negative whole numbers. And so that's all we're going to be doing here is reviewing adding and subtracting positive and negative whole numbers. Right? As I said, this is going to be a three-step process. You can see the three steps there are to simplify the signs in the problem. Often there will be multiple signs in a problem, and I think it's helpful if you know how to simplify that into a single sign. The second thing is to decide whether to add or subtract the numbers together. You know, sometimes when you're doing a subtraction problem, what looks like a subtraction problem, you actually end up adding. So I'm going to talk about that. And the last thing is putting the correct sign on your answer. That is the number one mistake I see people make, is they put the wrong sign on their final answer, or along the way even. So here we go. The first step is to simplify the problem by combining any of what I call double signs. And I'll get to that in just a second. First of all, let me go through a little example with you. The actual sign of each number. So we've got four examples here, and what we want to say is each answer, is each 3 positive 3 or negative 3? Obviously, the first one is negative 3, because that's all there is. But the second one, you've got negative 3. And negative 3 is actually positive 3, right? I think most of us probably know that. If you had negative 3 and you took the negative of that, it would flip it back to positive, is one way to think about it. Some people just remember that when you have two negative signs, you can put them together, right? And two negative signs can be put together to make a positive sign. However, the third example, negative 3, right? Each negative sign keeps flipping it back and forth between positive and negative. Or you can think of these two negative signs are actually a positive sign. But the third negative sign has nobody to combine with. He's kind of stuck there in the problem. So 3 negatives would actually leave you with negative 3. This one sign, the negative, means the same thing as all 3 negatives combined. Isn't it simpler just to have a single sign there? And last up, this is crazy. You probably never see anything like this. I do it for demonstration purposes only. Is this negative 3 or positive 3? Well, these two guys actually make a positive, and these two guys actually make a positive, so this thing is actually positive 3, and there's no negative signs left in the problem. This is something I think you can do fairly easily. Two negative signs make a positive. If there's a negative sign left that doesn't have a buddy to pair up with, then the number stays negative, right? All right, so in an addition or subtraction problem, when a number has two signs in front of it, I would like you to be able to rewrite the problem so that those two signs become one. the two signs into one sign that means the same thing. One sign is simpler than two signs. This only happens in two cases, I claim. When you are subtracting a negative number, or when you're adding a negative number. Which brings me to another topic. When do we call these things minus, and when do we call them negative? What's a minus sign? What's a negative sign? Well, I claim they mean the same thing. I claim that a minus sign and a negative sign have the same operation, and whether you say minus or whether you say negative kind of depends on the context of the problem. Like in the first example there, I would probably say 5 minus negative 3. I wouldn't say 5 negative negative 3. Sometimes parentheses will even be put around the number with the single sign so that it separates the minus from the negative and helps you determine when to say minus and when to say negative. But they mean the same thing. So what I want you to do is take those two signs that are in front of the 3 and change it into a single sign. Minus minus 3. What does minus minus 3 really mean? Well, the two minus signs combine into a plus sign, it really means plus 3. Or in the second example, when you have the plus and the minus in front of the 3, what do those two signs really combine into as a single sign? Well, since this minus sign has nobody to combine with, he's got to stay in the problem. And it would simply be 5 minus 3. All right? This is the first skill I want you to have. Anytime a problem has two signs in front of a number, even if they're separated by a parenthesis, you're able to combine the two signs into a single sign. All right, second, decide whether to add the two numbers or subtract the two numbers. Well, this is just a simple rule. When two numbers have the same sign, you add them. And when two numbers have different signs, you subtract, and you always subtract the bigger minus the smaller. I'll get to that in a second. If this has given you trouble, I suggest that you try circling the numbers, and you want to include their signs in your circle so that you keep track of what sign each number is. So, here are my two examples. We have negative 5 minus 3, and we have negative 5 plus 3. All right, the important thing here is, do you know whether to add the 5 and the 3 together, or do you know whether to subtract the 5 and the 3? Certainly, if you add 5 and 3, you get 8. If you subtract 5 and 3, you get 2. Right? These are the only two possible answers. Should I add the 5 and the 3 and get 8, or should I subtract the 5 and the 3 and get 2? Now we go back to our rule. When numbers have the same sign, you always add them. When numbers have different signs, you subtract them. So in the first example, my two numbers have the same sign. They're both negative. And so I'm going to add them and get 8. Now I know you're thinking that's not the answer. The answer is negative 8. We'll get to that in a second. What we're looking at right now is, should I take the two numbers and add them or subtract them? All right? Once you decide if you're going to add or subtract, forget about the signs. Just add or subtract the two numbers. Over here, in the second example, my two numbers have different signs. The 5 has a minus in front of it, the 3 is positive. And when numbers have different signs, you should subtract. So subtract the 5 and the 3 and get 2. That is the second step in adding and subtracting. Decide whether you're going to add the two numbers or subtract the two numbers. And then the last sign, or the last step is to put your correct sign on the answer. And in this case, you always use the sign of the bigger number. So if we go back to our two examples, -5 minus 3 and -5 plus 3, in the first example, since they had the same sign, we added them. However, I look at the 5 and the 3 and I say, all right, 5 is the bigger number. 5 gets to use his sign on the answer. That makes the answer -8. In the second example, my two numbers had different signs in front of them, so I subtracted, but 5 is still the bigger number. 5 is a bigger number than 3, so 5 gets to put his sign on the answer, and the answer is -2. Right? Right, when you're adding and subtracting, bigger number always gets to use his sign. Let's look at a whole bunch of examples. All right, so in this first set of problems, all I want you to do is rewrite the problem so it is simplified. I do not need you to answer it. So in the first one, notice how the 3 has two signs in front of it. I want you to be able to rewrite the problem so that there's only one sign in front of the 3. You'll do the same thing on your homework for this section. Second problem, the 11 has got two numbers in front of it, so this needs rewritten, and we all know that a -11 is actually a +11. This actually is 10 plus 11. The third problem, we're not going to let the parentheses fool us. That 2 has two signs in front of it. I am subtracting a negative number. And so those two signs need to turn into one sign. Two minus signs actually turn into a plus. The fourth problem, again, the 2 has two signs in front of it, right? There's two signs between the 5 and the 2. I'm going to take those two signs and combine them into one sign. A positive and a negative combines into a negative. So I would rewrite this problem -5 minus 2. Problem 5, I don't need to rewrite it. The 10 only has one sign in front of it, and the 1 only has one sign in front of it. And I noticed the direction said if the problem does not need rewritten, circle it. So that one, I'm just going to circle the problem. Number 6, the 32 only has one sign in front of it, and the 5 only has one sign in front of it. That problem does not need rewritten. Number 7, though, again, the 11 has two signs in front of it. I'm going to rewrite this problem, and I'm going to combine the -11 into a plus. And in number 8, the 3 has two signs in front of it. Again, it's two negatives. Remember, two negatives combine into a positive. So we're going to make this -2, right? The 2 only has one sign in front of it, but the 3, those two signs are going to get combined into a plus. All right, let's try actually answering some problems. Here we go. It says add or subtract to find each answer. For more than two numbers, work left to right. And I want you to rewrite the problem first if there are any double signs in the problem. Now at this point, you could pause the recording and you could do the examples yourself and then go back and watch it and see if you got them right. All right, in the first example, I do not need to rewrite the problem. I notice that my two numbers have different signs. If I added 3 and 11, I would get 14. If I subtracted 3 and 11, I would get 8, right? So that's my two possible answers, 14 or 8. I know that because these numbers have different signs, I'm going to subtract. And since 11 is the bigger number, he gets to put his sign on the answer. Positive 8 is the answer. In the second problem, My two numbers are -5 and -2. Those two numbers have the same sign. So, you know, again, if I add 5 and 2, forgetting about the signs, if I add 5 and 2, I get 7. If I subtract 5 and 2, I get 3. I just need to know which one it is. And since they have the same sign, I'm going to add them and get 7. But which sign goes on the answer? The bigger number. 5 is the bigger number. 5 is going to put his sign on the answer. The answer is -7. You know, obviously, if both numbers are negative, the bigger number is going to be negative, right? That's why two negatives always add up to a bigger negative number. The third one needs rewritten. I didn't have to do that yet, but here I see two signs in front of the 4. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as -8 plus 4. Now I'm going to decide, should I add and get 12, 8 and 4 added together, or should I subtract and get 4? You know, when you subtract 8 and 4, you get 4. Well, these two numbers have different signs. When they have different signs, we subtract. And which number is bigger, 8 or 4? Well, obviously, 8's bigger. 8 gets to put his sign on the answer. The answer is -4. The next problem does not need rewritten. When I take 9 and 15 and add them, I get 24. When I take 9 and 15 and subtract them, I get 6. Should I get 24 or 6? Well, these two numbers are different signs. The 9 is positive, the 15 has a minus in front of it. Remember, a minus sign, a negative sign. They mean the same thing. So in this case, since they have different signs, I'm going to subtract. And again, which sign goes on the answer? The bigger number. 15's the bigger number. He gets to put his sign on the answer. Problem 5. The 4 has two signs in front of it. I should be rewriting it. Let's do that. Now I need to decide. Should I add the numbers together and get 11? 7 plus 4. Should I subtract the numbers and get 3? Well, do they have the same sign or different signs? Of course, they have the same sign. They're both minus. So when they have the same sign, you add them together. And 7's the bigger number. 7 gets to put his sign on the answer. Problem 6 has numbers, doesn't it? And it needs rewritten. So let's take care of that first. Let's rewrite it. I'm going to have 11, but the two signs in front of the 4 are going to combine into a minus. And the two signs in front of the 7 are going to combine into a plus. So I really have 11 minus 4 plus 7. There are different ways to handle this, but I prefer to just do it left to right. So I would take the 11 and the minus 4. They have different signs, so I would subtract and get 7. 11's the bigger number, so it's positive 7. And I would bring down the number I haven't used yet. And then I would take 7 plus 7 and get 14, right? Let's look at a couple more than one number. Number 7 does not need rewritten. So I can just start subtracting from left to right. I'm going to start with the -2 and the -6. And I'm going to combine them. Let's see. These have the same sign. So I would add them and get 8. And 6 is the bigger number, so I'm going to put a sign of 6 on my answer. -2 and 6 make -8. And I would bring down the numbers I have not used yet. Then I would look at the two numbers again. Again, they have the same sign. So I could add 8 and 5 and get 13. Or I could subtract 8 and 5 and get 3. Well, since they have the same sign, of course, I'm going to add. And I'm going to put the sign of the bigger number on there. The bigger number. So I'm going to put his sign on the answer. And I'm going to bring down the number I have not used yet. And now I've got one more operation to go. Should I add these and get 16, or should I subtract them and get 10? Let's see. It looks like they have different signs. One's a minus, one's a plus. So I'm going to subtract and get 10. And 13 is the bigger number, so 13 is the sign on the answer. Final answer is negative 10. And last up, problem number 8. This one does not need rewritten. I'm going to start with the negative 10 and the positive 3. Those have different signs, so I'm going to subtract them. 10 is the bigger number, so he gets to put his sign on the answer. And I'm going to bring down the minus 6 that I have not used yet. These two numbers, negative 7 minus 6, they have the same sign in front of them. They're both minus. So I'm going to add, not subtract. Same sign means add. And 7's the bigger number. So he gets to put his sign on the answer. All right. Hope that helps. Good luck.